All right, guys, I promised you that I would have some follow-up videos on my previous video on HR 5717. This is the overreaching anti-gun bill that is quietly being talked about, not moved through the House yet, because again, our politicians are on vacation. They take off whenever they want, and they get paid a full salary, not like you and I during the COVID shutdown, where we have to beg for money from our federal government, beg for some of our own tax dollars back. Different story altogether, but that brings me to the first video in this series. The first one is going to be talking about the first title that they actually address in 5717, which is a federal license to own firearms and ammunition. If you intend to own, possess, purchase, borrow, loan any kind of firearm or ammunition, once this bill is signed and signed into law, if it makes it that far, again, this is just an assumption that if it gets that far, the way it will work is you're going to have a federal license in order to do any of that. That's correct. Everything that I just mentioned. I don't care if you're transporting a box of ammunition to somebody and it's not even for your gun. You're going to need a federal license. And guess what, guys? It's not automatic. You got to qualify. In order to qualify for this federal license, you must be 21 or older. You must complete training. This is going to include a written test and a hands-on test. And then you must have a background check. Now, I mentioned qualifying because, again, this is not automatic. Not only do you have to pass these parameters, somebody has to make a judgment on whether or not you're going to get this. This is not like in some states have concealed carry laws that are shall issue, where if you qualify, not by judgment, if you meet all the parameters, you automatically get that concealed carry. Some other states have a key law enforcement official in that area who, even if you qualify and meet all the requirements, they still make a judgment on whether or not they feel like you should have that. That applies here. It's not automatic. Now, the thing that gets me is how long you can be disenfranchised and stripped of your Second Amendment rights. Let's say that you are a female and you just ended a relationship with your abusive boyfriend or abusive ex-husband or something like that. You took the kids, you found your own place, you know something about guns, but you've never had any before, so you need one. This is what can derail you and get you killed or beaten up in pretty easy fashion. It can take up to 40 days before you are given permission to get this license and then in turn purchase the firearm. Now, that's 40 days that you can be given your federal license. If you're denied that federal license, you've got recourse. After that 40 days, again, they've waited 40 days to deny you. If you appeal that, they've got 90 days before they have to have a hearing. So you've got your 40 days, now you've got your 90 days. After the hearing, they've got an additional 15 days before they have to make their mind up. So even if you are granted the privilege of owning a gun under that particular authority, it took you 145 days of not having protection, almost 5 months of not having protection before you are granted the privilege of being able to protect yourself and your family. Now, once you get this license, it's not final either. You get to beg for, you get to ask permission to exercise your Second Amendment rights in order to get your federal license, because you get to do this every 10 years because you have to renew this. This is not a lifetime thing. Every 10 years, you will go through the same process. Now, let me point this out real quick. Even though the renewal is every 10 years, that's where you're going to have to pay for that renewal. Every year, one of the requirements in here is that you are going to have a background check and a full check done on you every single year by the federal government. So again, you're not reapplying every year, you're reapplying every 10 years, but they will be doing a, if you want to call it, secret background check on you every single year, no matter what. Now, I'm curious, if they deny you for getting this federal license, what is it based on? Because they don't state that here in the bill. Here's again where we're going to leave this open to interpretation for lawmakers, and we know what happens whenever you do that. So if they deny you for being able to get your license in order to purchase a firearm, is it going to be based on a previous crime? Maybe the fact that you're a felon? Maybe these are all things that already exist. In other words, Are there going to be new parameters that prevent you from being able to purchase a gun or get this license or have ammo? Because unless there's something different and more severe than the fact that you might be a felon or a drug abuser or anything like that, those are things that exist now that already prevent people from purchasing firearms. They don't seem to be working now. Now, one of the really unusual things is the firearm license that you get, you don't have to have it to own or possess any of those firearms that you owned or possessed. This includes ammo that you owned or possessed prior to this law going into effect. So they're grandfathering in all previously owned ammunition and firearms. They were denying you the right to have a license because they felt like you should not be allowed to purchase firearms or ammunition. Yet they grandfather all ammunition and firearms that you had previously. My problem with that is, and I certainly don't support their efforts, but if I'm enough of a threat today that you deny me the ability to purchase anything going forward, I still own all of those weapons. How am I less of a threat because of what you denied me the ability to purchase than I still am with everything that I already owned before this law went into effect? Am I really a danger or not? Another cool thing that they're going to be implementing is a database. Yes, you knew this was coming. Everybody says, oh, nobody wants to take your guns. Well, they can't really take your guns unless they want to go by postings on Instagram as being records of you owning guns. The only way they can really confiscate guns, and don't think they don't want to because they talk about confiscation of guns in many of these bills, but the only way they can do that is if they have a registry. That's in here. They will have a registry. You will be in a registry every time you purchase a gun or ammo. Speaking of that, how do they do that? Well, a couple of ways. One way to know that you have a grandfathered gun like we spoke of earlier is an additional cost that firearms manufacturers will have to incur, including ammunition manufacturers, is that now there will have to be dates stamped on everything. That's not on your current serial numbers whenever you purchase a firearm, and it's certainly not on anything when you buy ammo. That's a new addition. So again, we're going to talk about it in a later video, but the cost of all these things are going to be passed on to you, the consumer, the person trying to protect themselves. Now, the restrictions get just as ugly everywhere else. If you intend to purchase, rent, sell more than 10 guns a year, you're going to be required by federal law to purchase a federal license in order to do that. That's right, you heard me exactly right. You're going to be looked at as a trafficker or a dealer, meaning the trafficker is going to be an unlicensed person. I have bought more than 10 guns in a year in my lifetime. Trust me on this. So I'm going to be looked at, if I don't get my federal license to get 10 guns or more in a year, I'm going to be looked at as an unlicensed trafficker of firearms. So I'm going to be required to now go get my federal license to become, I guess you would say, a dealer. And now all the requirements of a dealer will now apply to me. And believe me, there's a long list of them. I'll go into that in a future video as well. Now, one thing that kind of caught my eye through this whole process is, again, as you're begging for permission to get a license, because it will not be granted automatically, they can actually say, you know what, all these requirements that you meet, still not sure about giving you that license, Paul. So now I'm going to need to interview you. That's right, interview me. They can choose to interview me, again, leaving it up to them, their opinion, their judgment, their feelings on whether or not I should be able to purchase handguns, firearms of any kind, ammunition. Not only that, they can even require that I get letters of recommendation, references, saying that it would be okay for Paul to have guns. They can require that of me. They can tell me that what I supplied them that would enable me to legally purchase firearms or ammunition, they can say this isn't enough. We need to not only bring you in and interview you, but we also need you to get some letters of reference. And they can determine how many letters they want me to have to beg for permission to exercise my Second Amendment rights. Now, you know my feelings on red flag gun laws. Those don't go away either. There's basically a grant system in place where the federal government will pay the states money to enact this crazy licensing scam that they have going on. in order to qualify for this grant, which you're going to have to qualify for it because it's going to be a federal law. In other words, you don't have the choice to say, I don't want your grant money. I'm not going to put these red flag gun laws in place. It's a federal law that you have to license any individual wanting guns or ammunition. So you don't have a choice. You can deny the grant money if you want, but the law is still going to exist on that state in order to enact these laws, these new laws that are in place. So now the states are going to be required and mandated by the federal government to enact red flag gun laws. So whether you want red flag gun laws or not, and your state wants them or not, by backdoor legislation, by forcing the federal gun laws and federal gun licensing onto the states, they're also backdoor mandating red flag gun laws just by the existence of the bill. Another quasi red flag gun law that's built into this, check this out. Tell me this isn't slick. If for some reason you are denied your renewal of your new federal license, or it's revoked for whatever reason, a crime of some sort, all of your guns and ammunition are now going to be taken from you, confiscated. So there's a built-in red flag gun law in this bill already, in addition to the red flag gun law that the states will be required to implement in their own states. Again, guys, they're making it sound like, oh, all your old guns and ammunition, we're going to grandfather that. You don't have to get a federal license in order to maintain possession of those. Guys, I'm going through this as detailed as I can, but as quickly as I can, because I want to make this a digestible series of videos, because we have to be aware of what's going on. Understand that these anti-gun people, the Bloombergs out there, Bloomberg's got a lot of time on his hands right now, not to mention all the money he's got. They're not stopping at anything. They're not letting the coronavirus derail them in any kind of way. In fact, they see that the American people are completely distracted with this whole thing, and this is a great opportunity for them to push these bills through without us knowing. In fact, just last night I saw a report from a very reliable source that said Nancy Pelosi and her crew, they got these new coronavirus relief bills that they're wanting to push through. Remember the last one that got pushed through had $35 million for the Smithsonian, had all this other money that went into other places. They were trying to fund abortion, all those things like that. They are trying to slide through red flag gun laws and outlawing private gun sales into this next round of coronavirus relief. So don't think that I'm trying to get you riled up. It's happening. It's happening right before our eyes. Guys, this bill, HR 5717, is not an old bill. This bill was dropped right smack in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic.